Have you ever been in a room full of people and felt completely invisible? Not just ignored, not just overlooked, but truly deeply invisible. Like you could speak and no one would hear you. Like you could wave your hands and no one would see you. Like your entire existence was just background noise. Now imagine this. What if you had a gift that could change everything in that room? What if you held the key to solving their biggest problem? What if you could save them millions of dollars, countless jobs, entire futures? But they would never think to ask you because of the mop in your hands. This is the story of Isabella Martinez. And the moment she decided to stop being invisible. It was a Friday morning at Sterling Technologies in Chicago. The executive conference room buzzed with tension. Billion-dollar deals don't wait for anyone, and right now, CEO Marcus Sterling had a problem. He stood at the head of the mahogany table, waving a document in the air. The paper rustled with importance, with urgency, with opportunity. But it was written entirely in Mandarin Chinese. "Anyone who can translate this acquisition proposal gets my salary for a day," Marcus announced, his voice booming across the room. $27,000 for $100. The executives shifted in their leather chairs. Some laughed nervously. Others exchanged knowing glances. No one moved. And in the corner of that room, almost invisible against the wall, Isabella Martinez stood frozen. Her hand gripped the handle of her cleaning cart. Her other hand, hidden in her pocket, clutched something precious. A jade pen. Cool. Smooth. Heavy with memory. Isabella understood every single character on that document. She could translate it perfectly, easily, in her sleep. But she said nothing. Because in that room, she wasn't Isabella Martinez, linguistics prodigy. She wasn't Isabella Martinez, fluent in 3 languages. She wasn't even Isabella Martinez, daughter of the man who'd built Sterling Technologies' entire Asian market division. In that room, she was just the cleaning lady. Marcus Sterling's Italian leather shoe nudged her cart aside, barely noticing her presence. "Maybe we should just use Google Translate," joked Ryan Bennett, the VP of Operations. His Harvard class ring clinked against his water glass. The sound was sharp, dismissive, final. Probably more reliable than whatever discount service we'd get otherwise. The room erupted in laughter. And Isabella's phone buzzed in her pocket. A reminder she didn't need. 72 hours until the eviction hearing. 72 hours until she and her mother would be homeless. $27,000. The exact amount standing between dignity and desperation. Isabella slipped from the room, silent as a ghost. Invisible once more. But this time, something was different. This time, a decision was forming in her mind. A dangerous, terrifying, necessary decision. Isabella hadn't always been invisible. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a little girl. 8 years old. Bright eyes. Confident smile. Switching between languages like most kids switch between cartoons. That was Isabella. Her mother, Chun, had traveled from Shanghai to Chicago for a student exchange program. Her father, Miguel, had come from Puerto Rico with dreams of making it in America. They met in a linguistics seminar. Can you imagine? 2 people from opposite sides of the world, falling in love over their shared passion for words, for language, for the bridges that communication builds between human beings. Words build bridges between worlds, Miguel would tell young Isabella, his voice gentle and warm. He'd guide her hand as she learned to write Chinese characters, each stroke deliberate and beautiful. The characters would dance across the page like tiny works of art. By the time Isabella was 10 years old, she could translate full conversations between her Chinese grandparents and her Puerto Rican relatives. She'd sit at the dinner table, this little girl, switching between Mandarin, Spanish, and English without even thinking about it. Her family would beam with pride. Both sides. Her Chinese grandmother would pat her cheek. Her Puerto Rican grandfather would call her mi tesoro, my treasure. Isabella was special. Everyone knew it. Everyone said so. And on her 13th birthday, her father gave her something extraordinary. The jade translator's pen. It was cool to the touch, smooth, perfectly weighted. The pale green stone caught the light and seemed to glow from within. Carved into its surface were Chinese characters. Knowledge illuminates. This pen belonged to a great scholar, Miguel explained, placing it carefully in Isabella's palm. Now it belongs to another. Isabella held that pen like it was made of diamonds. She carried it everywhere. To school. To the library. To every translation session with her father. When she held it close, she could smell the faint sandalwood scent from her father's study, where they'd spent countless hours together, lost in the beauty of languages. That was 15 years ago. 3 months after that birthday, everything changed. Miguel Vega was laid off from Sterling Technologies on a Tuesday. 15 years. 15 years of loyalty. 15 years of building the company's Asian market partnerships from nothing. 15 years of late nights, missed family dinners, weekends spent on conference calls with clients in different time zones. Gone. Strategic restructuring, they called it. A severance package that barely covered 2 months' rent. And the health insurance? Disappeared overnight. Vanished like it had never existed. Miguel came home that day looking smaller. Like someone had physically diminished him. Isabella was 13. Old enough to understand that something terrible had happened. Too young to understand just how terrible it would become. The cough started a few weeks later. Persistent. Annoying. Just stress, Miguel said. I'll be fine once I find a new position. But the rejection letters piled up. One after another. Companies that should have been thrilled to hire someone with Miguel's experience suddenly went silent. Interviews that seemed promising ended with awkward phone calls and vague excuses. Isabella remembered the night her father came home from an interview with a competitor. His face was gray. His hands were shaking. They can't hire me, he'd whispered to Chin, thinking Isabella couldn't hear. Sterling has blacklisted me throughout the industry. Something about proprietary knowledge. Stage 4 lung cancer. That's what the persistent cough turned out to be. The medical bills came like a tsunami. Faster and faster. Higher and higher. Treatment costs. Medication costs. Hospital stays. Specialist consultations. The numbers were incomprehensible. 30,000. 40,000. Climbing toward 50,000. Miguel kept sending out resumes between chemotherapy sessions. Kept hoping. Kept fighting. He died 6 months later. $43,756 in medical debt. That's what he left behind, along with a heartbroken family, and a jade pen that suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Chin took on 3 housekeeping jobs. 3. An engineering degree from Beijing University meant nothing in America without the right credentials, without the right connections, without the right accent. So this brilliant woman who'd once designed sustainable building systems cleaned other people's toilets. Isabella was 17. Senior year of high school. She'd been accepted to 3 universities with partial scholarships. Her guidance counselor said she was a shoo-in for the prestigious multilingual scholars program. Full ride. Housing included. A future so bright it hurt to look at. Then Chin had her first stroke. Isabella found her mother collapsed in the bathroom of one of the offices she cleaned. Partial paralysis. Slurred speech. The left side of her face drooping. The hospital bills started again. Another wave. Another tsunami. Isabella withdrew her college applications. Dropped out of high school 3 months before graduation. Found work at the first place that would hire a 17-year-old with no diploma. A cleaning company. The irony was almost funny. Almost. 5 years. 5 years of Isabella's life looked like this. 4 p.m. to midnight. Clean offices at Sterling Technologies. Yes. The same company that destroyed her father. The same building where he'd once had an office with his name on the door. Now she emptied the trash cans in that office. Wiped fingerprints off the nameplate of the executive who'd replaced him. Midnight to 7 a.m. Care for her mother. Medications. Physical therapy exercises. Helping her to the bathroom. Changing sheets. Cooking meals soft enough for Chin to swallow with her partially paralyzed throat. 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Sleep. 3 hours if she was lucky. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Translate academic papers online under the pseudonym Linguistic Bridge. $22 per hour. Better than the $14.25 she made cleaning. But inconsistent. Unpredictable. And anonymous, because revealing her real identity meant losing the healthcare coverage her mother desperately needed. 60 hours of work every single week. The math was brutal. The math was always brutal. $2,000 for rent on their 1-bedroom apartment. $463 for Chen's medications. $275 for the payment plan on Miguel's medical debt that would take another 8 years to clear. $190 for groceries. $145 for utilities. Nothing left over. Not a single dollar for savings. For emergencies. For hope. And for 5 years, Isabella moved through Sterling Technologies like a ghost. She emptied trash cans while executives discussed billion-dollar acquisitions. She wiped conference tables while they planned product launches that would change markets. She cleaned coffee rings while they made decisions about hiring, firing, restructuring. Her ears caught everything. Her fluency in Mandarin, Spanish, and English transformed the background noise of the office into a constant stream of valuable intelligence. She knew Marcus Sterling had cut employee retirement contributions by 30% while purchasing a $14.2 million vacation home in Aspen. She knew Ryan Bennett had stolen credit for the Singapore expansion strategy that a junior analyst named Priya Sharma had actually developed. She knew the company's public commitment to diversity was a lie. Maintenance staff, 87% people of color. Executive leadership, 94% white. Knowledge without power. Intelligence without opportunity. Isabella understood every word they said about Asian markets, about Hispanic consumers, about untapped multilingual demographics. She could have told them exactly what they were doing wrong. Could have opened doors they didn't even know existed. But she was invisible. And then came the 72-hour countdown. Chen's disability appeal had been denied. Again, the final eviction notice would be processed Monday morning. $25,000 for back rent and legal fees. Without it, they would be homeless by the end of the week. Isabella sat in their tiny apartment at 1:43 in the morning. The only light came from the blue glow of her mother's medical monitors. Chun slept fitfully, her breathing labored, her partially paralyzed body twisted in the hospital bed they'd crammed into the living room. The eviction notice lay on the kitchen table. The number 72 circled in red ink. Next to it, Isabella had placed the document she'd photographed at Sterling Technologies. The mysterious acquisition proposal from Zhong Tech Innovations. 30 pages of complex Mandarin. Technical terminology. Legal language. Business propositions. She understood every word. Every single word. Isabella's fingers closed around the jade pen. Her father's final gift. Knowledge illuminates, the characters read. $27,400. Marcus Sterling's daily salary. Enough to stop the eviction. Enough to buy time. Enough to breathe. But revealing her skills could cost her everything. Her job. Her healthcare. Her safety. And what if the document contained the same predatory policies that had destroyed her father? Would she help Sterling Technologies profit while hurting more families like hers? Isabella stared at the sleeping form of her mother. Thought about her father's grave that she couldn't afford to visit. Felt the weight of the jade pen in her hand. She made her decision. Saturday night. Sterling Technologies. After hours. Isabella pushed her cleaning cart through the empty corridors. Her uniform was her camouflage. Her janitorial ID badge was her invisibility cloak. Working weekend overtime? The security guard asked. Isabella exaggerated her accent, played the role they expected. See, mi madre needs medicine. The guard nodded sympathetically and waved her through. In the executive conference room, chaos remained from Friday's emergency meeting. Whiteboards covered with mistranslated notes. Papers scattered across the table. The executives' attempts at deciphering the Zhong Tech document were embarrassingly wrong. Isabella winced. They'd mistranslated even the title page. They thought Zhong Tech was offering a partnership opportunity. The characters clearly indicated exclusive manufacturing contract. Completely different meanings. Completely different implications. Using her jade pen, Isabella carefully corrected 3 critical sections. Her handwriting was precise, elegant. She translated the complex semiconductor terminology with the ease of someone who'd been trained since childhood. She signed her corrections simply, Night Owl. It was a test, a way to see if her skills had value without revealing her identity. Not yet. Too risky. By Sunday morning, her anonymous help had created a stir. Isabella arrived early, cleaning cart in hand, and lingered near the conference room. The door was cracked open. She could hear everything. Who the hell is Night Owl? Marcus Sterling demanded. Security says nobody unauthorized entered the building, Ryan Bennett responded. Must be someone on our team. Isabella watched through the gap as Bennett studied the whiteboard. Watched his expression change from confusion to calculation to something darker. Then he erased her signature. Actually, Bennett said smoothly, turning to Sterling with practiced confidence, I did this part. I've been studying Mandarin privately. Didn't want to make a big deal of it until I was more fluent. But given the emergency, Isabella's breath caught. Her small victory turned to ash in her mouth. Marcus Sterling clapped Bennett on the shoulder. Finally, some initiative around here. Take point on this, Bennett. Coordinate the team's efforts. Promoted. Ryan Bennett was being promoted based on her work, based on her knowledge, based on her skill. The injustice burned like acid in Isabella's throat. But she couldn't afford indignation, couldn't afford anger, couldn't afford anything except survival. 48 hours until eviction. The clock was ticking, and Isabella Martinez, invisible once more, slipped from the building with a plan forming in her mind. A dangerous plan, a desperate plan, a plan that would either save her family or destroy everything she had left. What happens when the invisible become visible? When the underestimated become undeniable? We will reveal the moment everything changes, and the price Isabella must pay for finally being seen. Desperation makes us brave, or maybe it just makes us reckless. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Isabella Martinez had 48 hours to save her mother, 48 hours to stop an eviction, 48 hours to prove that she was more than the mop in her hands. But first, she had to survive Ryan Bennett. Monday morning arrived like an executioner's axe. Isabella moved through her cleaning duties with mechanical precision. Empty trash. Wipe surfaces. Refill paper towels. Smile politely. Stay invisible. But inside, her mind was racing. She'd spent the entire weekend translating the Zhang Tech document in stolen moments. Hidden in bathroom stalls during her breaks. Crouched in the supply closet during lunch. Working by the light of her phone at 3 a.m. while her mother slept. She'd completed about 40% of the translation. And what she'd discovered made her blood run cold. The contract included workforce optimization requirements. Corporate speak for mass layoffs. Zhang Tech was requiring Sterling Technologies to cut 300 manufacturing jobs as a condition of the deal. 300 families. 300 paychecks. 300 futures. Among those workers would be her mother's cousin and his family. They'd finally found stability after immigrating last year. Steady work. Benefits. Hope. This deal would destroy them. Isabella had left more anonymous night owl notes in the conference room. Careful corrections. Technical clarifications. Each one a breadcrumb trail of her expertise. And each one claimed by Ryan Bennett as his own work. She watched through doorways as he presented his translations to Marcus Sterling. Watched him grow more confident with every stolen piece of her knowledge. Watched him build his career on her invisible labor. The countdown ticked in her head like a bomb. 56 hours until eviction. 47 hours until Zhang Tech's deadline. Her hands cramped from writing. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. And that night, her mother's condition worsened. The stress of potential homelessness had sent Chen's blood pressure dangerously high. The paramedics came at 2 a.m. The ambulance ride cost $400 they didn't have. Necesitamos un milagro, her mother whispered in the emergency room, clutching Isabella's hand with her one good hand. We need a miracle. Isabella looked down at their intertwined fingers. Her mother's hand, weakened by stroke, scarred by years of harsh cleaning chemicals. Her own hand, young but already showing the same scars. What her mother didn't know was that Isabella had the miracle within her grasp. If only she dared reach for it. Tuesday morning. Everything changed. We have a security breach. The words cut through the executive meeting like a knife. Isabella, arranging coffee service, kept her face carefully neutral. But her heart hammered against her ribs. The security chief played video footage on the large screen. A shadowy figure moving through the conference room after hours. The camera angle was bad, the lighting worse. You couldn't see a face. Could be industrial espionage, the security chief said gravely. Investigate everyone, Marcus Sterling ordered. Especially maintenance staff with after-hours access. Isabella felt Ryan Bennett's eyes on her. Calculating. Suspicious. Knowing. By afternoon, security was interviewing every member of the cleaning staff. When Isabella's turn came, she played her role perfectly. The simple immigrant who barely spoke English. Confused by complicated questions. No understand problem, she repeated, hating herself for the stereotype but recognizing its protective power. I clean only. No touch papers. The security chief seemed satisfied. But Bennett lingered after the interview. His Harvard class ring tapped against the desk. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound deliberate. Menacing. Interesting, he said softly. You seem to understand English perfectly when I'm giving you cleaning instructions. Isabella shrugged, eyes down. Instructions simple. Questions complicated. Bennett leaned closer. She could smell his expensive cologne. I think you understand more than you let on. Much more. That evening, Isabella discovered her locker had been searched. And something was missing. The Jade translator's pen. Her father's gift. Her talisman. Her connection to everything she'd lost. Gone. Looking for this? Ryan Bennett cornered her in the empty break room. He twirled the jade pen between his fingers. The green stone caught the fluorescent light, flashing like a distress signal. Quite an unusual item for a cleaning lady, Bennett said. These characters here, they mean knowledge, don't they? Isabella reached for the pen. Bennett pulled it back, smiling. Security is very concerned about unauthorized items, he continued. Items that could be used for corporate espionage. I've taken the liberty of filing a report. By Wednesday morning, HR had issued Isabella a formal warning. Possession of unauthorized materials. Suspicious behavior. One more strike, and she'd be terminated. Without her jade pen, without her connection to her father, Isabella felt unmoored. Her confidence faltering. Her certainty slipping away. The countdown showed 34 hours until eviction. Her mother had been rushed back to the emergency room with chest pains. The ambulance copay depleted their last savings. The apartment manager posted the final notice. 48 hours until they'd changed the locks. Desperate, Isabella used her lunch break to access Bennett's computer while he attended a meeting. What she found horrified her. Bennett had deliberately mistranslated key sections of the Zhang Tech proposal. Sections that wouldn't just harm workers. Sections that could violate international trade laws. Sections that could trigger federal investigations and massive fines. Marcus Sterling was about to sign an agreement that could destroy Sterling Technologies entirely. And Bennett was doing it on purpose. But why? Isabella returned to her cleaning duties, mind racing. When she passed Bennett in the hallway, he was waiting. I know it's you, he said quietly. The mysterious translator. Isabella said nothing. Kept walking. I checked the personnel files, Bennett continued, following her. Your mother is Chen Martinez, formerly Chen Minlu from Shanghai. Your father worked here until we, how shall I put it, right-sized him. Isabella's careful mask slipped. My father was an invaluable asset to this company. Bennett's eyebrows rose. So she speaks. Perfect English. I wondered how long you'd keep up the act. Give me back my pen. After I speak with immigration about your mother's visa status? Bennett's smile was cruel. Expired, isn't it? Since your father's death. Would be a shame if authorities were notified. The threat hung between them like poison gas. Speak up and face deportation. Stay silent while hundreds lose their jobs and Sterling Technologies commits corporate suicide. 30 hours until eviction, Bennett added, somehow knowing. 24 hours until Zhang Tech's deadline. Quite the predicament you're in, Miss Martinez. Isabella had never felt more trapped. Or more determined. The emergency board meeting began at 9 a.m. Thursday. Exactly 24 hours before Zhang Tech's deadline. Isabella moved silently around the conference room's perimeter. Pouring coffee. Arranging pastries. Invisible again. Ryan Bennett stood at the front, confident and polished. His PowerPoint presentation glowed on the screen behind him. As you can see, Bennett explained, gesturing to complex slides, the terms are highly favorable. Zhang Tech is offering exclusive manufacturing at rates 15% below market with minimal quality control oversight. Isabella's hands trembled as she refilled water pitchers. That wasn't what the document said. Not even close. Zhang Tech actually specified stringent quality control protocols with 15% higher tolerance standards than industry average. The exact opposite of what Bennett claimed. Their only unusual request, Bennett continued, is accelerated production scheduling using what translates roughly as modified staff allocations. Isabella nearly dropped the pitcher. Bennett was deliberately obscuring the mass layoffs, making them sound like minor scheduling adjustments. 300 families about to lose everything, hidden behind corporate doublespeak. There's a technical section about the Luong moxing process that's still unclear, Bennett admitted, butchering the pronunciation so badly that Isabella couldn't help herself. She flinched. Just slightly. Just enough. Marcus Sterling noticed. Something wrong with the coffee girl? All eyes turned to her. The room fell silent. Time seemed to slow down, crystallize, freeze. This was the moment. The edge of the cliff. Jump or stay safe. Speak or stay silent. Be seen or remain invisible forever. Isabella thought of her mother in the hospital. Her father in his grave. The jade pen stolen from her. The 300 families about to be destroyed. She thought about 5 years of being invisible. 5 years of swallowing her knowledge. 5 years of pretending to be less than she was. And she thought, enough. Ludong moxing, Isabella said softly. The proper tones flowed naturally from her mouth. Musical. Precise. Perfect. It means fluid modeling system, not whatever he said. The room froze. Ryan Bennett's face went dark. Excuse me? Isabella straightened her shoulders. 16 years of language study overtaking 5 years of practiced invisibility. You've mistranslated several critical sections, she continued, her voice growing stronger. Ludong moxing refers to the semiconductor's thermal management system, which requires specialized handling during manufacturing. It's not about staff reallocation. It's about technical specifications that your mistranslation completely ignored. How dare you interrupt, Bennett began. You speak Mandarin? Marcus Sterling cut him off, studying Isabella as if seeing her for the first time. Mandarin, Spanish, and English, Isabella answered. Her heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. I also read Japanese and Korean, though my speaking fluency is limited. She's lying, Bennett interjected quickly. She's just a cleaner, probably working for our competitors. My father was Miguel Martinez, Isabella interrupted, her voice ringing clear across the conference room. He built your Asian market division before your strategic restructuring 5 years ago. Before you blacklisted him. Before the medical bills from the cancer that killed him while he couldn't find work. Before my mother's stroke. Before I had to drop out of high school to clean the offices my father once worked in. Recognition flickered in Sterling's eyes. Martinez. I remember him. This is absurd, Bennett protested. She's probably. Check my credentials. Isabella pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She navigated to translationbridge.com and displayed her profile. I work under the username Linguistic Bridge. I have a 4.98 rating with over 400 academic and technical translations completed, specializing in engineering and business documents. Sterling took her phone, scrolled through the impressive client list, the glowing testimonials, the complex technical documents she'd translated flawlessly. His business instincts clearly wrestled with his prejudices. She could see it on his face. Mr. Bennett, Isabella continued, addressing the entire board now. Your translation mentions nothing about the stringent quality control protocols Zhong Tech actually requires. It also obscures the fact that they're requiring you to lay off 300 manufacturing workers as a condition of the deal, which would violate 3 separate labor agreements you've signed. The board members murmured, looked at each other, looked at Bennett, looked at Isabella. This is outrageous, Bennett sputtered. You can't possibly. Page 16, paragraph 4. Isabella recited from memory. The characters clearly state that Sterling Technologies must implement workforce reduction measures of no less than 300 positions within 60 days of contract execution. I can read the entire section verbatim if you'd like. In Mandarin. Or I can explain why your mistranslations could trigger federal trade violations that would cost this company hundreds of millions in fines. Silence. Complete total silence. Marcus Sterling studied her for what felt like an eternity. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Not warm, not kind, but calculating, recognizing opportunity when he saw it. My offer stands, he said. Translate the complete document by tomorrow's 9 a.m. deadline, and my daily salary is yours. $27,400. Isabella's mind raced. This was it, the moment she'd been working toward. But something made her pause. Maybe it was her father's voice in her head. Maybe it was 5 years of being underestimated. Maybe it was simply that she'd finally found her courage. I want it in writing, Isabella said. Her voice didn't shake. Not even a little. A formal contract guaranteeing payment upon completion. Sterling's eyebrows rose. And I want my pen back, Isabella continued. My jade translator's pen that Mr. Bennett confiscated yesterday and filed as suspicious material. All eyes turned to Bennett, who reluctantly pulled the pen from his jacket pocket. His face was crimson. And I want a written contract guaranteeing my continued employment regardless of the translation outcome, Isabella added, her confidence building with each word. With a confidentiality clause protecting my mother's immigration status from any retaliation. The room fell silent at her audacity. Sterling studied her with what might have been respect, or might have been calculation. With men like him, It was hard to tell the difference. Draw up the agreement, he finally instructed his assistant. And get Miss Martinez whatever resources she needs. As the jade pen was returned to her hand, Isabella felt its familiar weight. Cool. Solid. Grounding. Her connection to her father restored. The countdown reset in her mind. 18 hours to translate the remaining document. 36 hours until eviction. For the first time in 5 years, she was visible. For better or worse, Isabella Martinez had stepped into the light. Isabella worked through the night. They gave her a small conference room. A proper desk. A computer that actually worked. Coffee that wasn't from a vending machine. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. The jade pen rested beside her, its presence anchoring her. Reminding her who she was. Who she'd always been. The technical terminology flowed naturally. Semiconductor specifications. Manufacturing tolerances. Quality control protocols. Legal clauses. The language her father had taught her since childhood. By 3 a.m., her eyes burned. The characters swam on the page. She'd completed 85% of the translation, carefully documenting every discrepancy between what Zhang Tech was actually offering and what Bennett had claimed. The truth was complicated. Not as rosy as Bennett painted it, but not as exploitative as she'd initially feared. The workforce reductions were suggested, not required. And Zhang Tech had included provisions for retraining programs. For transition support. For protecting workers. They were testing Sterling Technologies. Testing their values. Their integrity. Their humanity. Her phone buzzed. A text from the neighbor sitting with her mother at the hospital. Doctors want to keep her another day. Need $2,200 deposit for continued care. Isabella closed her eyes. 30 hours until eviction. 6 hours until her translation deadline. If she succeeded, Sterling's money would solve everything. The hospital. The rent. The breathing room they desperately needed. If she failed, she couldn't afford to think about failure. Isabella rested her head on her arms. Just for a moment. Just to close her eyes. Just for a second. The crash of hot coffee splashing across her desk jolted her awake. Oh, clumsy me. Ryan Bennett stood over her, empty coffee cup in hand. Fake concern plastered across his face. I was just bringing you a fresh cup, he said. You looked so exhausted. Isabella gasped as the liquid spread across her handwritten notes. Soaked into her keyboard. Her laptop screen flickered. Sparked. Went black. My translation, she whispered, panic rising in her throat. Don't worry, Bennett said, his smile venomous. I took the liberty of moving your digital files to my secure drive for safekeeping. Can't be too careful with such sensitive material. Give them back. Isabella's voice was steady despite her racing heart. Despite the rage building in her chest. I would, Bennett shrugged. But unfortunately, there seems to have been some sort of corruption. Technical glitch. These things happen with sensitive files. The backup was gone. 4 hours before the deadline. Isabella would need to reconstruct critical sections from memory and the coffee-stained notes that remained legible. Bennett lingered at the door. Sterling expects perfection, you know. One mistranslated clause could cost the company millions. I'm sure he'll understand if you need to withdraw from the challenge. Go back to where you belong. He left, whistling. Isabella stared at the ruined papers. The dead laptop. The clock ticking toward 9 a.m. Her phone buzzed again. The landlord. Eviction processor coming tomorrow morning instead of Monday. Legal approved acceleration. 3 hours of work lost. Mother in the hospital. Eviction imminent. Bennett had outmaneuvered her at every turn. For one long moment, Isabella considered giving up. Walking away. Finding another job. Another city. Another life. Then her eyes fell on the jade pen. Still dry. Still perfect. Still inscribed with those 3 characters. Knowledge illuminates. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Words build bridges between worlds, Mija. Never forget that. Isabella picked up the pen. And she began to write. From memory. That's what people don't understand about true fluency. About languages learned in childhood, practiced daily, lived completely. The words aren't just stored in your brain. They're stored in your hands. Your throat. Your bones. Isabella wrote with a fury she didn't know she possessed. The jade pen moved across paper, reconstructing translations from pure memory. Technical specifications. Legal clauses. Manufacturing protocols. Her father's research journal lay open beside her. He'd worked on this exact technology. the GX 500 semiconductor series. Before Zhong Tech acquired the patent. Before Sterling Technologies fired him. The journal contained details not even mentioned in Zhong Tech's proposal. Proprietary knowledge. Manufacturing secrets. Testing parameters. 2 hours passed. 3. Dawn broke over Chicago. Light spilled through the conference room windows. Isabella's hand cramped. Her eyes burned. But she kept writing. At 8:57 a.m., 3 minutes before the deadline, she walked into the boardroom. The executives had gathered for the video conference with Zhong Tech. They looked surprised to see her. Some disappointed. Some curious. Marcus Sterling looked skeptical. Isabella placed the completed translation on the table before him. 43 pages. Handwritten. Perfect. The video call is starting, Sterling's assistant announced. Sterling hesitated. Glanced at the translation. Glanced at Isabella. Glanced at Ryan Bennett, who stood in the corner with barely concealed smugness. Miss Martinez, Sterling began. Perhaps you should. Actually, came a voice from the video screen. We would prefer if Ms. Martinez stayed. Everyone turned to the large display. Lin Zhong, CEO of Zhong Tech, appeared with his executive team. Beside him sat an older man with kind eyes. A man Isabella recognized. Mr. Zhong, she whispered. Miss Martinez, Mr. Zhong said in Mandarin, smiling. It is an honor to meet Miguel Martinez's daughter. He spoke of your linguistic gifts often. Isabella felt tears prick her eyes. She responded in flawless Mandarin. The honor is mine, Mr. Zhong. I didn't realize you were aware of my employment here. We weren't, Lin Zhong interjected, also in Mandarin. Until our intelligence team noted someone was accurately translating our deliberately complex proposal. Few people could navigate those technical terms correctly. We became curious. Sterling looked between them, understanding nothing, getting more uncomfortable by the second. Isabella switched to English. Mr. Zhong says they included technical complexities as a test. They wanted to see if Sterling Technologies still retained the expertise my father helped build. And, Sterling asked carefully, do we pass this test? That depends, Isabella answered. She switched back to Mandarin, addressing Zhong directly. The proposal contains ambiguities regarding workforce requirements. Was this intentional? A subtle smile crossed Zhang's face. Very perceptive, Miss Martinez. We have concerns about Sterling's labor practices since your father's departure. The workforce language was deliberately ambiguous to see how they would interpret it, how they would choose to treat their workers when given the choice. Ryan Bennett stepped forward. This is ridiculous. She's making this up too. Isabella pulled out her phone. Showed the security footage she'd recovered during her night of desperate work. Bennett clearly visible. Pouring coffee on her computer. Deleting files from her directory. Sabotaging her deliberately. The room fell silent. Marcus Sterling's expression hardened as he watched the indisputable evidence. Mr. Bennett, he said quietly. You're fired. Security will escort you out. As Bennett was removed, protesting loudly, his Harvard ring clattering against the doorframe, Zhang spoke again in Mandarin. We will proceed with the contract on one condition. That Miss Martinez oversees the implementation as our cultural liaison. We trust her judgment, her integrity, her father's legacy. Isabella translated, her voice steady. They insist on working directly with me as a condition of the deal. Sterling studied her. The power dynamic in the room had shifted completely. With Zhong Tech's deadline passed and millions at stake, he had no choice. Fine, he conceded. Miss Martinez will oversee cultural aspects of the implementation. The video call concluded with Zhang expressing his pleasure at finding Miguel Martinez's legacy alive at Sterling Technologies. As the executives dispersed, Sterling approached Isabella privately. It seems I underestimated you, he said. Many people do, Isabella replied simply. Our agreement stands. He wrote a check. $27,400. His daily salary. Though it appears you've earned considerably more than that. An email arrived on the boardroom computer. From Zhong Tech. A $50,000 signing bonus specifically designated for cultural consultancy services provided by Isabella Martinez. $77,400 total. Enough to save her mother's medical care. Stop the eviction. Pay off debt. Breathe. For the first time in 5 years, Isabella allowed herself to cry. 6 months later, Isabella sat in her corner office on the executive floor of Sterling Technologies. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Chicago where she'd once felt invisible, where she'd once cleaned these very windows from the other side. Her desk, polished walnut, not pressed composite, held a framed photo of her mother. Chun was smiling, her physical therapy progressing ahead of schedule. They lived in a proper two-bedroom apartment now, close to a facility where Chun received specialized care. The jade translator's pen rested in a small crystal stand. When Isabella held it, the sandalwood scent mingled with the fresh orchids she kept beside her father's photograph. Two sensory connections, past and present, loss and hope. Her title was Director of International Relations. Her first official act had been establishing a scholarship fund named for Miguel Martinez. Her second had been implementing a comprehensive review of the company's labor policies. Her third had been creating the Hidden Talents Initiative. 28 other support staff members had been promoted in 6 months. The security guard with an engineering degree from Nigeria. The cafeteria worker who spoke 5 languages. The IT help desk technician with a gift for product design. People who'd been invisible. Now seen. The contract she'd negotiated with Zhong Tech had increased Sterling's Asian market share by 32% in just 2 quarters. The board members who'd once looked through her now addressed her as Ms. Martinez with genuine respect. Even Marcus Sterling had developed a grudging appreciation. Not from any moral awakening, but from the simple arithmetic of profit. At the last shareholders' meeting, he'd said, Ms. Martinez's unique perspective has proven unexpectedly valuable. Corporate speak for. I was wrong about her. Ryan Bennett, meanwhile, had become a cautionary tale. No major tech firm would hire him after his sabotage went public. Last Isabella heard, he was teaching business communication at a community college. Karma had a sense of irony. Isabella's assistant knocked gently. Your mother's physical therapist called. The improvements are continuing ahead of schedule. Gracias, Isabella answered, allowing herself the pleasure of using Spanish openly in halls where she'd once hidden her identity. Her phone chimed. The monthly board meeting in 15 minutes. 6 months ago, she'd been invisible in that room. Today, she would present her international expansion strategy. A plan projected to create 450 new jobs. As she gathered her materials, her gaze fell on a framed newspaper clipping. Sterling Technologies stock soars on Asian partnership. New director credits immigrant father's legacy. What the article didn't mention were the lives changed. The families saved. The bridges built. Isabella walked toward the boardroom carrying her father's jade pen. Not hidden in her pocket. Not secret. Visible. Proud. Employees greeted her in 3 languages as she passed. Each interaction a small bridge between worlds. The board members rose when she entered. A sign of respect that still surprised her. Good morning. She began in English, then Spanish, then Mandarin. The board members smiled appreciatively. Today, we're discussing how embracing multiple perspectives transforms not just our culture, but our bottom line. She clicked to her first slide. The 32% market share increase alongside the 24% improvement in employee retention. Numbers spoke every language, especially in boardrooms. Talent doesn't always arrive in expected packages, Isabella continued. But companies that recognize it, regardless of its wrapping, gain competitive advantage. The jade pen moved confidently across her notes. No longer a burden of the past. Now a bridge to the future. Behind every person you overlook is a story you don't know, Isabella said. A skill you haven't discovered. A solution you haven't considered. A voice you haven't heard. She thought of her father. Of her mother. Of 5 years spent invisible. The question isn't whether exceptional people exist in unexpected places, Isabella concluded. The question is, are we willing to see them? This video ended with a question. Have you ever been underestimated? Has someone ever looked right through you, never knowing what you were capable of? Isabella's face appeared on screen, older now, confident, speaking directly to the camera. This is my story, but it's not just mine. It's the story of every person who's been invisible. Every talent that's been overlooked. Every voice that's been silenced. She held up the jade pen. The green stone caught the light. My father used to say, words build bridges between worlds. But sometimes before we can build those bridges, we first have to become visible. We have to step into the light, even when it's terrifying. Even when it's risky. Even when we might lose everything. Isabella smiled. Not a corporate smile. A real one. Because here's what I learned. You can't lose what you never had the freedom to be. So to everyone watching this who feels invisible right now, in your job, in your family, in your life, I want you to know your time is coming. Your moment will arrive. And when it does, step into it. Claim it. Own it. The world needs your gifts, even if it doesn't know it yet. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever held back your true self because you were afraid of what might happen if people really saw you? Share your story in the comments below. Tell us about the moment you stopped being invisible, or the moment you're still waiting for. Because every voice matters. Every story counts. And sometimes the act of being seen, of truly being seen, can change everything. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people discovering their extraordinary power. Hit that like button if you've ever felt invisible and wanted to be seen. Remember, your gifts matter. Your voice matters. You matter, even when the world forgets to look. Especially then. At Unspoken Story, we believe that behind every struggle is a strength waiting to be discovered. Behind every moment of invisibility is a person waiting to shine. Thank you for letting us share Isabella's journey with you. And thank you for being here, being seen, and reminding us all that everyone has a story worth telling. What's yours?